Hi, I'm Daniel Andrews, owner and creator of the DAN Show, and welcome to my breakdown of the San Francisco 49ers. Now, if you're new to my channel, I've got one simple question to ask you. Do you want to talk football? Because if so, you're in the right place. There's this button right around here. See it, see it, see it. Bam! Hit that button. Become one of the greatest people on planet Earth. Now, here's how my breakdown video is going to work. I'm going to start off with what I like about the San Francisco 49ers. Then I'm going to talk about what I don't like about the Niners. But stick around till the end where I break down the Vegas over-under. And if I am going to put action down on the Niners. So, hey, let's kick this off with what I like about the San Francisco 49ers. Let's start off with the San Francisco 49ers old school approach. Since John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan took over the 49ers in 2017, they've adopted an old school approach. It was kind of funny because some guys I just started to follow at the beginning of football season after the Niners jumped out to a 3-0 start. Week 4 was their bye. Posted, "You watch, Jimmy G will choke. They're not even going to make the playoffs." And I responded, good running game, good defense, old school approach. That makes the playoffs. And bottom line, when you're able to run the ball and you're able to play good defense, usually win a lot of games. They had the second most rushing yards, the second most rushing attempts. Keep in mind, Baltimore set a record for most rushing yards. I didn't check if they set a record for most attempts, but it was one of the highest attempts in the history of the National Football League. A lot of seasons, the attempts and yards that the Niners had in the running game last year would have led the NFL. It's just, the Ravens kind of excelled with their quarterback running the ball quite a bit. Their defense gave up the second fewest yards, eighth fewest points, and tied for fifth with most sacks and 48 points. So, here you are. You run the ball, you play good defense, you get a lot of sacks. That wins a lot of football games. Second thing I like about the San Francisco 49ers is the emphasis on the defensive line. And this works hand in hand with the old school approach. If you want to, I can go back in history, talk about every great NFL defense, and it'll all start with the defensive line. But John Lynch, who was a member of the 2002 Tampa Bay Buccaneers, one of the best defenses of all time. Just take a look at that defense. They had Simeon Rice. He was the third overall pick, first team All-Pro for that Buccaneers team. They had Warren Sapp, first team All-Pro, Hall of Famer. Booger McFarland, who, Anthony McFarland. Most of you remember him from Monday Night Football, or he was an announcer. I think he's still an announcer, but he was a first-round draft pick added to that defensive line that's already had two really, really good football players. Warren Sapp, of course, is in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So what they're doing is make a high priority of the defensive line. Take a look at what they've done in the 4 drafts that Lynch has been there. 2017, the third overall draft pick, Solomon Thomas. 2019, second overall pick was Nick Bosa. Then they traded the second round pick and gave $90 million to Dee Ford. This draft, the 14th pick overall, Javon Kinlaw, they assigned Dion Jordan, who was the third overall pick in the 2013 draft. He may or may not make the team since, unfortunately, he's been a bust, but hopefully he can get his career turned around. And then ESPN has 2017, I think he's a 6th-round draft pick, DJ Jones, the starter. Our Lads has Solomon Thomas. But if you go by what Our Lads has, including Armstead, you have 4 first-round picks, and then you have Dee Ford, who the 49ers gave up a second-round pick for. He was a former first-round draft pick. And Dion Jordan, who was the third overall pick, as backup. So this defensive line, keep in mind Dion Jordan may or may not make the team, is composed of six first-round draft picks, and John Lynch has only been there for 4 years. So what do the 49ers emphasize more than anything else? And it's that defensive line. So just kind of correlate that with the old school approach. You have the old school approach, the huge emphasis on the defensive line. What else is an old school approach? It's the third thing I like, and that's Jimmy G. Jimmy G, since he's been a starter in San Francisco, has a record of 19-5. That's a pretty good ratio. If you break that down, it's 24 games. Let's just say you break that down into 16. That's a record of 12 and a half and 3.5. Basically, the guy almost averages 13 wins a season. If you want to argue how good of a quarterback he is, you can argue that. I'd understand that. He was named the 43rd best player in the NFL by the NFL players. I don't think he's that good. I'm not even sure he's top 10 quarterback, but I can't say the guy's not a winner. He's 19-5 as a starter, 2-1 in the playoffs. Whether you like Jimmy Garoppolo, whether you don't like Jimmy Garoppolo, he's a winner. The Niners, when they traded for him and got him from New England, they were a 1-10 team. He won the last 5 games. That was it. You add Jimmy G, all of a sudden you go from a 1-win team to a 6-win team. 5 wins. Maybe some other things happened besides Jimmy G, but that was the main thing that ended up having a team that was going to pick maybe the first in the draft. Well, they ended up picking 9th. So, bottom line, kind of to recap, you have the old school approach, which has a huge emphasis on the defensive line, and you got a winner, a good quality starter at quarterback. So you have all these 3 things going together, which is a big reason why this team ended up going to the Super Bowl. Now, let's talk about what I don't like about the San Francisco 49ers. The first thing I'm going to mention is key losses, and they're big losses at key positions. First, Emmanuel Sanders, who you traded a 3rd and a 4th round pick for. He goes to the Saints. Now, keep in mind, 49ers and the Saints are both 13-3. The 49ers beat the Saints in a wild 48-46 game. That, if all things are being equal, sending Sanders from San Francisco to New Orleans shifts the power balance from San Francisco to New Orleans. New Orleans, if you've been watching my videos or watching me for a while, I've said has the most talent, but San Francisco did beat them. So that transaction alone instantly shifts the power in the NFC. Plus, you lose a 3rd and a 4th round pick in this year's draft for players no longer on the team. DeForest Buckner, who you traded for a 1st round pick. Now, Eric Armstead did not make the NFL top 100 list. Buckner was 56. In my opinion, now my opinion's a minority. This is a very small opinion. Most people disagree with me completely, but I thought the 2 best players on the San Francisco 49ers were Eric Armstead and DeForest Buckner. I thought Armstead was better than Buckner. I think the Niners organization agrees with me because they kept Armstead and they traded Buckner. These were the 2 most important pieces. Most people say it's Sherman or Garoppolo or Bosa, Kittle. For me, it was these 2 defensive linemen because they basically allow this wide 9 defense to happen. Joe Staley, starting left tackle. Now, he only played in 7 games, but he was the starter during a playoff run. He was a team captain, 13-year starter, 6-time Pro Bowler. He retired. So you had to trade a 5th round pick this year and a 3rd in 2021. Now Trent Williams is an unrestricted free agent next year. He's on the wrong side of 30. 3 years ago, if you had said, hey, who do you want to play left tackle, Trent Williams or Joe Staley? I'm taking Williams, but this guy didn't play football last year. He's on the wrong side of 30. It's important that you re-sign him because if not, you lose a 3rd round pick already. This is key because ESPN just released this article, and I'm not going to read the whole article, but in 2021, they have 22 unrestricted free agents, including Richard Sherman, DJ Jones, Kyle Juszczyk, I'm sorry, I'm butchering that name, the fullback out of Harvard, one of my favorite players, Quan Williams, Jaworski Tart, Tom Compton, Tevin Coleman, Jerick McKinnon. You also have to figure out a way to get Fred Warner an extension. You don't have to worry about Kittle because you signed him to the big contract. I can go both ways on it. Does he deserve the money? It's a record-breaking deal. He's the highest paid tight end in football. You could say yes. However, you have to pay all these other players. How good's he going to be without all these other players helping out? Because bottom line, you're already giving up a 3rd round pick in the 2021 draft, and I think you had some holes, which leads me to the second thing that I don't like about the San Francisco 49ers' lack of draft picks. They had 5 draft picks, 2 in the first round. Keep in mind Buckner, they traded Buckner for the first round pick. But they didn't have a pick in the second, third, and fourth round. So they have picks in the 5th, 6th, and 7th. Those guys usually may make the team, may not make the team. The 3 players they chose I like, but if you're counting on a 5th, 6th, or 7th round pick to help your team this year, that's not the way to go. Keep in mind they also traded up in the first round to take Brandon Ayuk. One of the players I really liked, I would have liked him a lot more at 31 than I did at 25th. You had to give up a 4th round pick. Here's the problem I have with the draft is that you lose Emmanuel Sanders, so you have to trade up in the first round to draft his replacement in Brandon Ayuk. Is he going to be able to provide the same type of veteran leadership that you need? Deebo Samuel may not be able to start day one. Do you think a rookie can? I think that long-term, Ayuk's going to be better than Sanders because Sanders is 33, but on the short term for this year, who would have been a better player? The answer is Sanders, even though Ayuk, really, really good player. You lose Buckner, you draft Javon Kinlaw, one of my favorite players. I thought he was a top 10 player. Getting him at 14, good move, but he's a player who's going to replace the 56th best player voted by the NFL players. So is he going to have that type of impact? Not immediately. Long term, could he be one of the best defensive tackles in football? I think he will be, but not for 2020. Bottom line, teams usually don't throw away draft picks for players. Giving up a 3rd and a 4th for Emmanuel Sanders. Now, do they make the Super Bowl without him? I'm going to say no. But how's he helped down the line? Because you needed picks. You had holes to fill. You didn't win the Super Bowl. So you're giving away draft picks for the future, and you needed to trade another pick. He really cost you a 3rd, a 4th, and then another 4th because you traded up in the first round to get Brandon Ayuk, his replacement. Good teams don't throw away draft picks like this. If you lose Trent Williams, you don't re-sign him after the season, you just threw away that 3rd and 5th round pick. 5th this year, 3rd next year. And then you start off 2021, you have to find a way to replace them, and you don't have a 3rd round pick. Third and final thing I don't like about the San Francisco 49ers is that I always look at how teams finish the season. Well, the San Francisco 49ers started off as the hottest team in football. They're 8-0. The defense was awesome. They gave up 102 points, and they produced 16 turnovers. So that's 2 turnovers a game and about 12.5 points a game given up. Well, the last 8 games of the season, they go 5-3 and allow 208 points. Basically, it's 26 points a game and produced only 11 turnovers, and they only had 4 turnovers produced in the last 5 games. The 9th game, overtime loss against Seattle, they had 4 turnovers in that game alone. So here's the thing. Teams figured out how to attack that wide 9 defense, and I think that's big going into this year because here's a team that was considered to have this great defense. Well, they really weren't great the second half of the season. First half of the season, 102 points and 16 turnovers. That's a great defense. Second half of the season, 208 points allowed and 11 turnovers. That's not even a good defense. Teams figured out how to play the 49ers. In my opinion, this is somewhere between the 4th and 6th best team in the AFC. I tried to explain to a 49ers fan, you didn't really have that good of a team. You weren't the 2nd best team in football. Of course, you started resorting to name calling like a lot of the 49ers fans did when I tried to educate them on their own team. But I get it. You don't want to hear about the negatives. Here's the facts. You weren't as good as Kansas City. You lost to the Ravens, so you weren't as good as the Ravens. You wouldn't have beat New England in the Super Bowl. New England plays San Francisco in the Super Bowl. New England wins that Super Bowl. All right? Were you as good as Tennessee, Buffalo, or Houston? I think you would have beat Buffalo in the Super Bowl. I think Buffalo somehow gets to the Super Bowl. I think of all the teams in the AFC, I think Buffalo was the worst. Was San Francisco better than Buffalo? Sure. Were they as good as Tennessee or Houston? That's kind of a gray area. I think you could say that they would have been the 5th best team in the AFC last year. So Anyway, just to recap, the three big things I didn't like about the San Francisco 49ers is key losses at key positions. Really trading away a lot of draft capital. You had a terrible draft, not because you didn't get good quality players or good quality draft value, because you had 5 picks and you had a lot of holes and a lot of players that you really could use an influx of talent. This is an aging team at a lot of key spots. Keep in mind, 22 unrestricted free agents going into 2021. And the way you finished the 2019 regular season leads me a lot of cause to be concerned, because teams, I think, really figured out that wide 9 defense. All right, so what did I say? Stick around to the very end where I'd go over to Vegas over-under. And if I would put action down on the San Francisco 49ers, the over-under is 10.5. The over is -120, which means that you have to wager $120 to win $100. The under is even money. So basically, you bet $100, you win $100. Now, I told one of my buddies, so Tim, if you're watching, I might have to backtrack on you, and I'll get a hold of you, because he said he was going to go to Iowa, put some action down. This was my number one team to bet on. And the reason why is that teams that have a string of double-digit losses then jump up and have a good year always come back down. Look at the Chicago Bears. They had 5 or 6 straight years of double-digit losses. They go 12-4. They finished 8-8. The team that really reminds me the most of San Francisco would be the 2017 Jacksonville Jaguars, who had 6 straight double-digit losing seasons. And then they go to 10-6 and have a great stretch where they make the AFC Championship game. By the way, key correlation, they were up 20-10 in New England in the fourth quarter. Does that sound familiar, Niners fans? It should. And what happened with Jacksonville? Well, unfortunately, Jacksonville went from 10-6 to 5-11. And there's a lot of other similarities. They were number 1 in rushing attempts, number 1 in rushing yards. They had second fewest points, second fewest yards. There's a lot of similarities between the 2019 49ers and the 2017 Jacksonville Jaguars. That's why I was convinced that the over-under, this is my number one team, and that's 10.5. However, I started looking at the schedule. And Tim, this is why you got to worry, because I still love the under. You got to take the under. This is a play that I'm probably going to make. I'm going to say probably, and I'll tell you why I say probably. The Niners' schedule is extremely favorable. They play the NFC and AFC East. All right? Their first 5 games, home against Arizona, at both New York teams, Jets and Giants. Now, a West Coast team traveling to the East Coast for a noon game for 2 straight games. Yeah, it's tough, but these aren't really good teams. Home against Philly, home against Miami. Ideally, right there, you should start the season 4-1. Your next 5 games are tough. You get the Rams at home, at New England, another East Coast visit. And keep in mind, it's first 7 weeks of the season. You go to the East Coast 3 times, but this is an afternoon game, which helps a little. At Seattle, a Thursday night home game against Green Bay, a team you owned last year. And then you go at New Orleans. Keep in mind, you get an extra few days before you travel to New Orleans. Then you get your bye late. You get the bye late in the season, which is a good thing. But I think that you're probably 4-1 going into that stretch. But you're going to lose a couple games there. I would say more than likely going into the bye, you're probably looking at being 7-3. You get a big advantage because you get a bye week before you travel to play the Los Angeles Rams. Home games against Buffalo and Washington. Then you go to at Dallas, at Arizona, end the season, home against Seattle. Here's the thing. I see 10. And I think this team's going to be considerably worse than last year. But this is a team that's probably going to start off 4-1. And after the bye, I think they win the Rams. They're going to win Washington at home. Buffalo's a tough one. At Dallas, that's a Sunday night game. I don't think you can go. I think that's pretty much a coin flip. At Arizona and home against Seattle, there's 3 wins in those 6 games, maybe more. So I'm looking at 7-3, and then another 3 wins. I think they finish about 10-6. Now the over/under is 10.5. I do think they're going to be significantly worse. I think that they're going to have some problems. I don't think that this is really that good of a team. I really don't. I think this is a team that's going to hover around 500, but they need to get off to an early start. There's lots of things I don't like about the San Francisco 49ers, but the schedule is really, really easy. So I'm probably going to put action down on the Niners, but I was ready when I saw 10.5. I was about ready to mortgage the house, go to a loan shark, do whatever I had to do to put as much money on the Niners as I can. But man, this schedule's really easy. There's a lot of winnable games. Plus you get the bye at the perfect time. Then you go to at the Rams. So that's probably going to be a guaranteed win. The Buffalo game at home's on Monday night. Another big advantage because, you're traveling, but it's to LA. I mean, it's about an hour flight from LA to San Francisco, if that. So, I do like the under, but as far as wagering my life savings on it, I'm a little hesitant because this schedule's really easy. And I also think the NFC is kind of a crapshoot. I'm going to stand by it. I think the Saints are the best team in the NFC, but the last 3 years they've been the best team in the NFC and they haven't been able to get to a Super Bowl. So listen, hey, give me a thumbs up on this video. Share this great content with your friends. Tomorrow, I get to break down the Kansas City Chiefs. So, hey, enjoy your Monday. I will see you tomorrow.